Good morning, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. I am Natasha, and I am here to talk about the clinician and technology. And in truth, I am recording this on a Saturday morning, and it is beautiful outside. Oh my goodness. For those of you that don't know what the Pacific Northwest is like, or haven't ever been to Vancouver Island, which is where I am located, our spring is usually a little gray. I will say, though, it's been beautiful, but it has been chilly. So chilly, but the last few days have been blue skies, sunshine, and warmth. And it makes this girl incredibly, incredibly happy. So today I am sitting here. It is a Saturday morning. My son is in the living room. I am drinking my coffee, looking at the sunshine, and actually recording this before I get into my own breathwork practice. So happy Saturday to you, or obviously happy Monday since we're listening to this. So today I want to talk about the clinician and technology, because if you see my Instagram, when I share some reels, you see a lot of technology in my reels. And so one of the biggest questions we actually get asked when we launch our Concussion Nerds program, which is our program for our mentorship program for clinicians who want to excel in this concussion space and be leaders in this concussion rehab space, is, do I need to have technology? So I'm going to, full disclosure, that in the Concussion Nerds program, when I mentor clinicians who are stepping into this space or wanting to deepen their understanding and knowledge, that program is taught assuming you do not have the technology that I have in my clinic. We talk about technology in the program, and we talk about when someone is ready to add technology to the program, what that looks like and the decision process you go through to decide what piece of tech to add when. But the program itself is taught with zero tech in mind. And because when I started doing concussion rehabilitation, I had no technology whatsoever. I had my hands, I had my eyeballs, and I had whatever small kind of pieces of equipment we had at the clinic. So there is a lot you can do without technology, but there is a lot that technology can help us with as well. And so I think one of our biggest strong points as clinicians is our empathy, our compassion, our ability to relate and have conversation and communication with our clients. It's the ability to ask questions and dig deeper and help find those root causes. And then also putting on our clinical reasoning hats, which we now know AI has some abilities to do as well, but putting on our clinical reasoning hats to navigate through, to create new treatment plans, to be creative, to find ways to serve our clients. A lot of the clients that I work with that come to Symphony are on a persistent journey. So they're individuals that have been experiencing concussion symptoms anywhere from 1 month to, I'm going to say, 7 years, I believe was one of our clients, right? So they've been on this journey for a while and they've seen multiple providers, and they may have gotten a little bit better. Some of them may have gotten worse. Some of them may have felt like they haven't changed. Some of them feel like they've gotten better, but now they've been stuck at this place. There's a lot of different reasons why people come and see us. Ultimately, they want their healing journey to continue. And when someone comes in, our job, and you've heard me talk about this before, is we do this huge multi-systems assessment. So we really want to glean insight into all the different systems and how they are functioning. What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? How are they all playing nicely together in the sandbox, right? And sometimes when you talk with a client who has seen other providers, it's very obvious that this approach just hasn't been taken. And so there's just kind of this missing link on actually seeing how everything fits and works together. They've had a very siloed approach to their rehab, right? They've seen one person who just did the neck, or one person who just did vestibular, or they haven't even touched autonomics, right? So when that individual comes into the clinic, then it's really, the assessment is huge. And when people reach out to me and they're stuck, that's one of the first questions I ask them is, have you had the chance to have an assessment that really looks at the full picture of you and your kind of physiology and your neurology to have an insight into what's happening? Now, you can do a lot of that assessment without technology. We absolutely have bedside standardized tools and assessments that we can do that will give us insight into every single one of those systems. And that is what I teach you in Concussion Nerds. But there is only so much our human eyes can see, right? There's only so much that our human eyes of movement, of detection can see and process in the brain. And so the biggest thing here is just because we can't see it with our eyeballs doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is the whole concept of concussion, right? When you look at somebody, if you just see somebody, the thing they hear all the time is, well, you look normal, right? They're not wearing a cast. They don't have a thing on their head that says, hey, I have PCS or I'm recovering from a concussion. They look like an everyday person. You can't see their injury. Now, depending on, for some individuals, when they start to speak or when they start to walk or whatever it is, then you may notice things. But to just look at somebody, you can't see it and say, that person has a concussion. So when we're doing assessment, just because we can't see something with our naked eye in room light, I'm going to add a caveat here, doesn't mean something's not wrong and something doesn't exist. And so where technology comes into play in the partnership with who we are as a clinician is it's our eyes that can see deeper. Technology gives us insights that we can't pick up on our own that can be incredibly valuable in deciding and building a treatment plan for a client. So one of the tools that I love that when someone says, well, I want to add technology to my clinic, what do I do? One of the first tools that I recommend people add is a VOG goggle, as it gives us the ability to see the eyes and record the eyes on camera in the dark. It is incredibly valuable because on that type of assessment, when you remove the eyes from room light and remove the ability for the eyes to fixate on something on room light, you're going to see potentially involuntary eye movement that you don't see in room light. And that involuntary eye movement gives us as clinicians insight into brainstem activity, into vestibular activity, into cerebellar activity. We've also removed any reference of direction in the goggles, right? There's no points of reference to be like, that's straight up and down. So when you start to ask someone to shift their eyes in the dark in the goggles, you get a bit of a perception of their spatial awareness. Where do they think up is or down is or right is or left is, right? So this is just one example of when I bring a VOG in so I can see my client's eyes in the dark, I get a clearer picture, or I may get a clearer picture of what is showing up that I can't see in room light. And that information will absolutely help drive my treatment plan. So if you are a clinician listening to this and you are in this place of like, my bedside's great, but I would like to add some technology. What do I add? The first piece of equipment I always recommend is the VOG. And honestly, the company that I think does a great job with it, and I have zero association whatsoever, it's just what we use in my clinic. It's what I recommend to the concussion nerds, is the vestibular first goggles. They are a fabulous, cost affordable way. Now, here's the thing. They're a beautiful goggle that gives you no reports. So this is absolutely a beautiful example of the clinician and the technology being a team, because the technology is showing you the data, it's showing you the image, it's showing you what happens. But then as the clinician, you need to be able to interpret and understand that. And then also take that and see how that would apply or impact your treatment plan. At our clinic, we just got a new piece of equipment. Okay, so when we're looking again at technology, when I'm trying to decide if we're going to add technology to my clinic, and again, if you see my reels on Instagram, you see that we have quite a few pieces of technology, which is always funny because I laugh because I love technology and I am horrible with technology as well. When it breaks down, when it doesn't work, I am the least tech savvy person in the planet, which is hilarious because I have all this tech in the clinic. I have online programs that use tech. It's quite comical, I think, when it happens. However, we know who to turn to when the tech doesn't work. But we just got this new piece of tech. So we were at a place in our clinic where, we have technology to help us measure eye movements. We have technology to help us measure the neck in really objective ways. We have technology to help us measure the vestibular system, your balance, where you are in dark. We have this thing called subjective visual vertical. We have a ton of tech to measure a lot of things to give us objective outcome measures, which is beautiful because that objective data is what we can see change in, and we can correlate that objective data to how you feel and all these amazing things. I love it. But I was looking for a piece of technology that could also give us a picture of kind of overall brain processing. Because we have a lot of clients that come that show and that share that, cognitively they're challenging, or things just feel harder or slower, or they're more distracted and they have trouble processing multiple conversations, attention, more in this cognitive realm of things. And while we have some screens and some tests in one of our intake assessments that does a bit of a cognitive screen, I wanted something that could really highlight the picture of like the processing of the brain a little bit more, the cognitive processing of the brain a bit more. Because I also know that the work that we do at our clinic, when we address the integrative rehab plan that we use, we don't necessarily do cognitive, at least in an intensive format when you work with me, we don't do cognitive rehabilitation in the traditional sense, but we get cognitive improvement. And so I really wanted something that could help highlight this, and also just something that could give us the ability to ask more questions. So we brought a piece of technology in called the NeuroCatch, and it is a brain EEG activity device. It measures, so ultimately, lay version, it measures brainwaves and brain activity. We provide a stimulus, and then it takes a snapshot of the change in the brain activity around that time of the stimulus. So we can kind of measure a bunch of things around this. And it was beautiful because as we were going through the training with the team and with our trainer from the company, we had so many discussions about, well, what is this data going to show us? And this device was a beautiful example of, it's not black and white. Sometimes when people bring technology into the clinic or into their clinic, you want it to be, yes, you have a concussion, or no, you don't. That doesn't exist, right? We don't have in the world today one test that definitively says that's a concussion. It doesn't exist. We know that it's more, what is the cumulative assessment showing us that we can say, yes, this person has had a concussion, because we know that a concussion does A, B, C, and D, right? We know that it has these 7 clinical profiles. The research shows us how eye movements are affected. The research is showing us how autonomic nervous systems are affected. The research shows us how the neck is affected. The research shows us how the vestibular system is affected, right? So then we can take the accumulation of our assessment and say, yes, this person has a concussion. So this new piece of equipment that we got is, again, another tool to glean insight into saying, okay, we are looking at 3 different brain waves and we can see how they're impacted. And it's another piece of data and information for us to also then monitor the change, to be able to show the difference in brain processing as we treat. So it's a piece of technology that gets to work with us to share and give us more information to then also help us make decisions about, do we need to adjust, shift, change a treatment plan? Are we seeing improved cognitive processing within the brain? What does this look like? Technology can be an incredibly valuable thing. Also, particularly from an aspect of being able to validate and show our clients that something is happening, right? When you talk to the people that have been on this journey for a long time, the most common thing they still hear is, it's all in your head. I had a client in the clinic the other day come in, and she was sharing a story, and every time I hear this, it just breaks my heart, about a clinician she'd worked with that, the client was told that she wasn't working hard enough, she wasn't doing enough, it's her fault she wasn't getting better. Just like unacceptable languaging is what it was. And so the other beautiful thing, and you see it when I share it on my stories or in the presentations that I do, is to be able to have this report that very clearly shows that there is a challenge with something, to then also be able to pull that report and very clearly show the shift, is so powerful and validating for our clients. And yes, obviously they start to feel the change as well, but we also have to recognize, and I say this because I hear it from so many of our clients, is that when they start to feel better after a period of really not feeling well for so long, there is almost this fear to trust it. Is this real? Is this going to last? I don't actually know what normal feels like anymore, so I'm not sure if this is a good feeling or a bad feeling. These are really common conversations that come up. So as the client is feeling these pieces, to then be able to have their clinician come say, here's what we noticed just in our bedside assessment first. Like, let's just highlight the change here. When we first assessed this, this is what we found. Today, look at how you did. Like, that's huge. And then to also be able to show them a report that says, look at how your eyes moved on day one. Look at today. There's no disputing that change. This is real. And now we just get to keep going forward. Right? So sometimes I think there is this fear of bringing technology into the clinic. And in our space today, there's definitely some fear around technology and AI replacing what we do. And I don't think it will replace us if you embrace it. If you embrace it. There's also this viewpoint that we don't need technology as clinicians, and I would disagree. Dependent on the population you serve, of course, but I guarantee you that for some of my clients, if I didn't have the insights I had with the support of my technology, I wouldn't get the changes I got. That is not every client. That is not every client, right? So our bedside assessment is incredibly powerful, and we will also see things on our bedside assessment that we don't see in the technology as well. So it can't be one or the other. It's data from both. It's like you're holding hands. Okay. And then the other piece is then how do we start to bring technology in for client communication? You know, when you're looking at your models of how you do business in your clinic and how you communicate with your clinic and how these things work, are you someone that uses, I'm going to say Jane app is my EMR system. It's amazing. All my charting's in it. It's great. Online booking, the bare minimum piece of technology that we need, I feel like, to run a clinic today. But then I also use a communication app. So we have an app that I will assign exercises through that I upload my own. And then that app also allows me to have communication check-ins. That app allows my clients to keep a progress diary so they don't need to remember everything in their head for our next appointment. And so how else are we utilizing technology to support the progression and the healing of our journey? Sometimes, full disclosure, I'm still the pen and paper exercise girl because it's funky exercises that I give people that I don't feel like typing out. But again, it's what's going to serve my client the most. And so as technology continues to advance and grow, we have to step back as clinicians and be like, how is this going to serve us? How can we embrace this? How can we utilize this? And I will say we have our upcoming Concussion Nerds virtual summit, the first ever one, this fall. And we are going to be having a colleague of mine. He is an amazing physical therapist. He's truly, I'm not saying his name quite yet, but he's truly pushing the boundaries and the growth and the progression of the physical therapy profession. I mean, it's a whole ton, chiropractic, on how we blend technology into our practices to have better outcomes without being this insanely high ticket offer, which is what we see a lot in the online world, right? So he is going to come talk about how we blend this a lot more and how we utilize technology. So we embrace it, you guys. So we embrace it. We're not afraid of it. And so he's going to be one of the speakers in the clinician track of our upcoming virtual summit. So we're having a clinician track. We're having a client track. There's pre-recorded sections. There's live sections. You know me and how I'm all about integrative rehab and holistic approaches and the things we need to look at. So you know that this summit is going to embrace that feel and that theme as well. And it's unlike anything that's ever been done in the concussion space, I feel like. So we're super excited. In the show notes is the link to join the wait list if you are interested to be the first to know when registration opens for the summit. There will be free and paid passes. And I'm just stoked because I just realized as we're doing this, we have a speaker to come speak more on this topic. So again, I sound a bit like a broken record. Our training, our knowledge, our clinical reasoning, our compassion, our empathy, our ability to build relationships is ours. Like we need that. We need you. We need your brain. We need your creativity. But technology can be that window that lets us see deeper that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. And getting all of that information together can let us build these really epic treatment plans for change for our clients. And again, I'm not that person that's going to say, go buy every piece of tech. I'm going to say, let's start without the tech and let's get your clinical bedside skills really freaking great. If you have the money to get the tech, amazing. But let's get your skill set awesome. And then let's talk about how we start to add technology into your clinic, what we're going to start to add to your clinic, and why we're going to start to add it to your clinic, and how that's also then going to be encompassed in the fees that you're billing for your sessions. I hope this was helpful. I wish you guys an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you next week with a bit of a different episode. Talk soon. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.